What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and pretty comfortable 3-0 win. But I think the big thing coming out of this game is the comparison to last season. Because I went to the same game last season, same stadium. Yes, it was a little bit different because it was a long rain delay, but the main thing that changed beside that is the players on the field. And that is such a big thing in this game is the quality from last season to this season of our pretty much our backup brigade is so much better. Um, just all around the field, honestly. I mean, we had so obviously Perez and Escobar, probably the two that will play the most out of this group that played today. Kratz obviously gets some time every now and then, but I mean the rest of them are players that either haven't gotten a lot of time. Some of them haven't even played a minute of MLS action. So I think overall, it's fantastic to look at this game and say we cruised past Charleston. Whereas last season we put in our quote unquote second team and we struggled. We barely beat them. We had to bring on Miguel and Joseph, I think, by the end of the game to really get past them. Today, I mean, we had I forgot Gressel's in the midfield too. Yeah, that kind of tells you a bit about his game tonight. That I nearly forgot about him. No, but I mean overall, the quality this season is so much better from the second team, if you want to call them that. And so I think that's just a huge thing. The big takeaway from the game for me is just that. Um, as far as the individual performances are concerned, overall, it's hard to gauge, I guess, how well some of them did, because some of them did look good, but some of that you kind of have to wonder: is it because we're going up against a USL side? Is it because it's not really MLS quality opposition? I think that does have to do with a few of the performances, and I'll talk about that when I get to them. But first of all, we'll start off in goal. Alec Can hasn't played a whole lot this season. He got one game overall so far, and to see him coming off of that one game, hasn't gotten a whole lot of time to play. To see him coming into this game from only one performance, it's pretty good. He still looks sharp. He still looks like he's got the quality that we saw from last season. Maybe a little bit more confident even. So I think overall it was a good performance from him, and it's good to know that if something happens to Brad, if injury, another red card, maybe at the point where he starts to get too old to be able to do it, to know that we have at least a quality keeper like Alec Can behind him, it's very comfortable. It makes me feel more confident about our options, because he looks like he can hold his own. I mean, he made a few good saves against Orlando, but he made a couple tonight that were really, really good. He had to challenge some very tall players in the air. The free kick where it was in the second half, driven low, he didn't get a lot of time to see it. He got down quickly, reacted, made the save. I mean, it was a very, very good save. So I was thoroughly impressed with him tonight. As far as our back line is concerned, we had Escobar on the right and then Salziso on the left. Both of them, both of them didn't really have great games, I would say. But the one that really stood out for me was Salziso, and not in a good way. We were sitting right behind the Charleston bench, like the second row, right behind him. So we got to see a lot of Sal in the first half, and I wasn't really impressed. Defensively, he looked kind of lazy. There were a couple challenges that I felt like he went in a little bit soft. Probably their best chance of the half came from a moment where, guy gets not really even in behind Sal. He just sort of is there, picks up the ball, and Sal's challenge just lets him turn and lets him get in behind him. And now all of a sudden he's chasing from behind. Perez makes a tackle right outside the box, ends up being a foul, and creates a very dangerous play. And it all comes from that first non-challenge from him. And it wasn't the only time that happened. And even on the ball, he looked slower than the rest. He looked like he didn't really have an idea of what he wanted to do. It just felt like out of all the players out there, he was the least confident, and he was the least, I guess, the least likely to know what to do whenever the ball came anywhere near him. And considering he's supposed to be more of a veteran because he's been around the league for a while, that's kind of sad. To think that you've been around for this long and you still don't really have the same capability as some of the other players out there. It really does feel like he is just backup. And a lot of people have been, just gushing about Mikey Ambrose. I personally, I haven't seen what a lot of other people have seen. I think he's been solid this season, but not great. Not like, ooh, he's super fantastic. But based on what I saw tonight from Ziso, I'd much rather have Mikey out there because he works hard. He's quicker than Sal. He has more defensive capabilities than Sal. So overall, I just think Mikey right now is the better option, and tonight really proved it. Um, as far as Escobar is concerned, not really a bad game from him. I just don't think he was as involved. Part of it was because Charleston were really attacking down our left side more often because I think they saw a weakness in him that they didn't see in Franco. But on the attack is where he started getting involved a bit more, Franco did. And he was okay. He wasn't great. He didn't really have some of these, ooh, what a great cross, or, ooh, that's a great passage or play. He just kind of put himself in the right positions from time to time. He was just okay overall. So didn't really see anything fantastic, but I thought he did play well. In the middle, Perez and Robinson were the two, and both of them played well. Part of it, I do think, is because the strikers tonight weren't the best in the world. They're playing for Charleston, so they weren't really tested. But both of them stood up under some strong challenges from time to time. Perez looked solid for the first time I think I've seen all season, so that was good to see that he can have those moments. However, I do have to ask, why can't you do that more often? Why are you always so reckless and just flying everywhere? Why can't you have more games like this where you are composed, you're able to step in and win the ball, and if you don't, you get back quickly? It's like whenever you take away Parkhurst out of the middle, all of a sudden he has to be the leader. It's like then he focuses. Well, why can't you do it more often? Why can't we have two focused center backs? Because that would be even more helpful. But then as far as Miles was concerned, I thought he looked solid. It definitely is a moment where I kind of feel like looking at this game, he can do the job. He can fill in when we need him to, and that's good to know because we've kind of been riddled with injuries in our back line. So I do think he's stepping up big time, considering he didn't get to play a whole lot last season, if at all. So to see that he's really done well enough to, I think, warrant a chance to fill in for somebody that's injured, I do think that's a big improvement for him. Into the midfield, Kevin Kratz, Julian Gressel. Kevin, in my opinion, Romario obviously played very well, so man of the match I do feel like is probably deserved for him. But second for me had to go to Kevin. Very solid in the midfield, worked very, very hard defensively, on the ball, created some great passes, made some great defensive tackles, made a double goal line save off a corner in the second half. He really just busted it, and he's that type of player for me. He has a few moments of lapses of concentration, a few moments where you kind of see he doesn't have the physical capabilities that some of these other players have, but the work rate that he puts in is just fantastic. And in my opinion, it's why he deserves to be playing. He deserves to not necessarily upseat Jeff or Darlington out of the midfield, but I do think he deserves to at least, somebody's tired, let's get Kevin in for them. You need somebody to work hard in the midfield? Let's get Kevin in, because he is just that type of player, and tonight really proved it. Julian didn't have a terrible game tonight, but once again, I just feel like he's not a midfielder. Watching him play, there are some good moments here and there, but for the most part, he just didn't feel as involved. And to be fair, there have been quite a few games recently where I felt like he hasn't been involved as much. I just feel like he has sort of faded in and out of games, but I think you put him in the midfield and he's even less involved because he's getting passed around because defensively he's not good enough to be able to, close down effectively. And then you give him the ball in the midfield and, yeah, a couple times he'll come up with a good pass, but most of the time, he's put under hard pressure, and he's not a player that plays under hard pressure. He's not a player that's quick enough to turn away from the pressure or make a quick pass out of the pressure. So I just feel like you put him in the midfield and he's going to disappear. He's already kind of faded out of a couple games, even out on the wings where I think that's where he needs to play. But in the midfield, I think he's even more of a fade-out type of player where, yeah, he might pop up with an occasional good pass or a good cross if he does drift out wide. But I know a lot of people love him. I know he won Rookie of the Year, but I don't see that quality. I don't see that because I'm not a fan of moment players. I'm not a fan of those players that pop up and it's like, oh, that's a great pass, or oh, that was a great turn, and then for the next 15 to 20 minutes you're just quiet. I'm not a fan of those type of players, and that's what I feel like Julian Gressel is for me. So, but overall, he didn't play poor. I think he still had a decent game. I just think that he is very. I'm not going to say useless. I don't think he's as effective in the midfield as he is when you put him out wide and let him really just have the space to do what he needs to do. And then you look at our three in behind the striker, Barco, Carlton, and Vasquez. They kind of interchanged a little bit, and I do think that did help, especially in the second half. We started really running Charleston ragged because, those players tended to interchange a little bit as far as who was where. I'll say that in all truth. Barco and Carlton were the two that were the ones that were interchanging. Vasquez mainly stayed just on the right side. But as far as their performances are concerned, I thought Barco played well. He definitely is showing more quality in the past few games. I think he's done well with his chances. Yes, he's had a few poor games, but I think his hard work rate is what I'm starting to see more of. I think I kind of bashed him in the last game a little bit, but I don't know. I see the quality is there. I see what he's doing. Tonight definitely had a better game, partially because the quality of the opposition wasn't as good. But I think when it comes to bigger games, when it comes to MLS games, the important thing for him is to, find the link-up play. Find those players that are going to make runs for him, so that way it's not just him dribbling into nowhere. He had help around him tonight. You got Andrew Carlton making runs for you. You got Brandon Vasquez and Mario Williams making runs for you. He has options now, whereas most of the time it's just Joseph and Miguel, and then that's all he has to work with. It's just two players, and a lot of the time they're marked. So I think tonight showed that he has the capability to play when he has the options. But you take away those options, we've seen he's not as effective. Carlton, obviously great to see the homegrown player get himself a goal. Well struck shot too. I think the keeper probably could have done a little bit better. But overall, I just think he kind of showed that he is a good player, but he's not quite MLS quality yet. I do think he could be effective if we needed somebody who's just going to work hard, just kind of put the midfield under pressure, try to run some people ragged. I do think he could do that. Coming off the bench, he'd probably be pretty good. But right now, the quality that we have, he's not there. He'd probably do well on maybe one of the lower sides in the MLS. You send him out to Colorado, Real Salt Lake. You put him on one of those teams, he probably would be able to take the field. But because we are top quality in the MLS right now, we need players who are also up there. And I would say he's not quite there. And there were some moments where you could just tell, Ezekiel is out there just turning people, taking people on, beating people off the dribble. And Andrew is just getting knocked around a little bit, losing out on a couple challenges. So I don't think he had a bad game by any means. But I do think it showed tonight that he's up against this USL opposition, and he's playing well against them, but you can see he looks like he's more fit for that level than he is for MLS quality. So, and then Brandon on the right side, thought he did okay. His height definitely helped him because, man, they were a tall team for sure. They had a couple short guys out there, but they had a lot of height, especially in the defense. And, Brandon's height really helped him. The one thing that I think is his biggest problem, I think he works very hard. I think the runs that he makes are very clever. Sometimes his passes are very good as well. His first touch is terrible. We saw it a bit last season too when he got a few chances. But tonight, it showed once again his first touch needs a lot of work. There was one, I can't remember who sent him the ball now. I think it was Perez. Brilliant switch ball to him, right on his foot. Just popped it straight up. Instead of trapping it and then keeping it at his feet, didn't really take a touch on it. It just knocked it to the ground, popped it straight back up. Defender's on him. Now he has to take a bad touch to get it away from the defender. Nearly loses it out. And then there were a couple others where ball is through to him. He's one-on-one with the keeper or he's in behind the defense. That first touch is a little bit long. Now the keeper has it. Too many moments like that. And the rest of the quality is there. I mean, physically, he looks like he can do it. I think his runs are very, very clever. I think he has the capability, and he's still young too, he has the capability of being a very good MLS player, but that first touch has got to improve because you can't be taking these long touches in the MLS because players will just crush you. You take that long touch, all of a sudden here comes whoosh, right through your legs and you're done. So, I don't know. I'm happy with the work rate. I'm happy with what he's doing, but I think they need to look at that and say, all right, this is what we got to work on with you if you want to get to that level. Because it's a very easy fix. You work on that first touch. I mean, you can do that. You can easily work on that. But I'm not seeing any improvement. I'm seeing the same stuff that I saw last year. So a little bit disappointed with that. But overall, I'm glad with his work ethic tonight for sure. And then Romario up top, definitely showing that he has the quality and the work ethic to really, not necessarily challenge Joseph for the position because I think Joseph has that just a bit more quality. But I think I see him as a good option. I see him as a good. We need a goal. We're one goal behind. Bring him off the bench. Put him up top with Joseph. I think the two of them could do a lot of damage together. Because the thing is, what does Joseph do well? He's very good holding up the ball. You give it to his feet, he looks to flick somebody on, or he looks to try to lay it off and turn and get behind the defense. What does Romario do well? He does a very good job of winning the ball out of the air. He's very big, strong, knocks people off the ball. His hold-up play is good, and great at getting in behind. You put them together, it's like if one of them is flicking it on, the other one's making the run in behind. I feel like either of them can do either one. Why not give it a go? Obviously, I don't know if we've really been in a position, aside from maybe the Red Bulls game, where we needed to try to get a goal and needed to bring on a sub to make a change. But that is a change that I think we need to look at. And the problem is, Tata, very, very set in his ways. He continues to make that sub of Williams on for Martinez. I would like to see him give that a go. If we're ever needing a goal, if there's ever a moment where let's try to get more attacking options on, I'd love to see him come on for maybe Barco, and then we go with Miguel dropped in behind those two. I think that's a strong front three. So maybe it's just me, but I think tonight he showed he is very capable. He's very strong. Only a couple mistakes here and there, but overall, he worked very, very hard, so I was impressed. As far as the subs that came on, Wheeler-Ominu was the first one to come on and didn't really have a whole lot of time. Neither of them did, honestly. But from what I saw, kind of similar to what I remember of the Minnesota game that we saw earlier this year, he's a solid player. He's not fantastic. There's nothing that's going to scream he needs more time. But he's a player where if you're missing a couple through injury, maybe a couple suspensions or something like that, if you need somebody in the midfield who's just going to hold it down and work hard, he can do the job. I was impressed with what I saw from him. And then Chris Goslin came on. And, nice to see another homegrown player get some time. I wish Tata had given him a bit more time. Honestly, I wish both of them had gotten some more time. Because after the third goal, I think at that point it was the 65th minute, I thought to myself, why not get a couple of these young players on? Why not give them a chance to show what they can do? I just felt like the subs came a little too late and they didn't really get a chance to prove themselves and show us what they could do. And that's what I wanted to see out of this game. So I was a little bit disappointed with that, but overall I think everybody played decently well. I think the only one that didn't really impress or didn't at least play average was probably Salzi. So the rest of them I thought either played well, did enough, didn't really have a bad game. So I think it's definitely a sign that last season we put in our second team. We put in the players that don't get a lot of playing time. We struggled against this team. This year we put in the same type of players, but the quality is much better. We just cruise through easily. 3-0 win, no problem. I don't know. I'm happy with that. I think it's a sign that we are growing as a team overall, as a franchise as well. I'm excited. And on top of that, we get to rest a lot of our best players. Miguel didn't have to play. Jeff, Michael, Darlington, who else? Joseph didn't have to play. So all of these players that last season, whenever we were at this game, there were a couple, Miguel and Joseph had to come off the bench and play a little bit. Yeah, it wasn't a whole lot of time, but they did have to play. Tonight, they get the night off. They get to rest and relax. So they get to go into Saturday's game against New York City fully 100% rested. So I just think it's a huge thing for us, and especially going into the next round of the Open Cup as well. Who knows who we're going to get? Orlando's a possibility. Nashville. Who are the other ones? I think Minnesota won. Louisville won. Red Bulls crushed New York City. So all of these teams that are going to be difficult, and you kind of wonder, all right, do you play your better team against them, or do you let your second team have a chance? Based on what we saw tonight, I say give the second team a chance. Maybe you face a team like Orlando. If they put your first team in, we put our second team in. Maybe we lose that game. But I think it's a good experience for some of these second team players. Some of these players that are on the verge of being on the first team, or maybe are the substitutions that come in for the first team. Let the first team players have a break. I think this is a quality enough group to where you can actually be competitive in this tournament this season and still let your first team players get rest, because we have MLS games coming up, very important MLS games on top of that. So I just very happy with tonight, very excited to see where we go this season. How far do we make it in the Open Cup? Does Tata allow some of these players to continue to play in this cup and sort of let them have their run in the first team for the Open Cup? I don't know. But I'm very, very excited to see what's going to happen next, so hopefully you guys are too. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on sorry, it's late. What were your thoughts on tonight's game? Who was your man of the match? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Atlanta United reviews. I'll see you guys next game. Peace out.